Do I look a little happier today to any of you?
Yeah.
Am I glowing just a bit? Let me see, find this slideshow. There we go. No. Yeah. All right. You ready? Well, I'm looking a little happier today. If you can hear me, am I okay? All right, good. I'm looking a little happier today because yesterday my family came in. And when your ship comes in, you're so thankful to receive those gifts. Three precious people who I hold most dear to anything I have in my life right now. I was able to reunite with my family. It's been, I don't even know how long it's been. I've been back and forth home, but I caught myself, I'm not going to tell you how fast I was going. When I realized we had passed each other, I had to go out and get some things. I had to turn around because they beat me to the house that I left it open. And I was just so anxious to get back to them. I'm not going to reveal how fast I was going, but I caught myself going very fast, and I had to slow down. And absence truly does make our hearts grow fonder. I'm learning that with my family and also with my church family. And as we're separated, in these times, it could be a little disheartening, a little challenging, and even disappointing. But we are praying that we would all stay encouraged. So I want to just welcome all of our members, not only Living Faith, but the whole district, Lena Church, also Shano, and our friends in Wasaki. We're so thankful to be able to have this means of joining together. Although, be it virtual, it's still, better than the other alternative, which is to not see each other at all. So if you, anyone who is out there listening would be like to be a part of the program, maybe someone would like to do children's story or do some music, contact me and let's schedule something to get more of the church members involved. And it's good to see a little bit, not much of a crowd, and we are within the numbers. We're legally all right here, so Adventist Risk doesn't have to be worried about what we have going on. But it's nice to see a few faces in the house, and that's a blessing. We have a message. The Lord has a word for us today. As you can see, my title slide is Seeing the Signs. How important is it to see the signs today? Whether you're taking a trip and you're in your navigation, or you're looking at the signs, or these old things they used to use, you buy them in the gas station or different places, you fold them out. What are those things called? You don't see them much now. I think it's a map or something like that. Yeah. Very important to see the signs, right? I want to take us back in history a little bit. How many of us know about World War II? See some people. I see some hands back there. You probably read about it. I don't think you were around then, and I was not. But this is a great generation of people participated in this World War. But how long did it take America to get involved in that war? Now, it began on September 1, that's my wife's birthday, 1939, right? Germany had invaded Poland. 2 days later, that's not a long time, Britain and France declared war on Germany. And 10 days later, Canada joined World War II. Now, there were very quick knee-jerk responses to something that was going on, but where was the United States in all of this? It took another 2 years for the United States to get involved. And thinking that a war could go on, a world war could go on for 2 whole years without United States involvement is something to think about, but that all changed on December 7, 1941. Do we know what happened then? Pearl Harbor, 2 words, right? So history tells us that on that fateful day, 2 U.S. Army privates were manning a mobile radar unit on the Hawaiian island of Oahu. They saw something on their radar screens that should have alerted them and could have served to prevent what was about to happen next. They saw some Japanese warplanes. These were the blips that they saw on the radar. They turned out to be Japanese warplanes that were headed for that island. This attack resulted in over 2,000 American service personnel being killed and over 3,000 American planes being destroyed or badly damaged. 18 ships were lost. More than 1,100 died when the USS Arizona was sunk. A colossal tragedy, but guess what? It's a tragedy because it didn't have to happen. It could have all been avoided. It could have all been so different. Turns out that the two privates, they contacted their superiors about what they saw on the radar, but they were told that there was nothing to worry about. They were told that they had been probably saw American planes on tactical maneuvers. You just saw some of our people flying from the deck of a nearby aircraft carrier. So around 7:45 a.m. on that day, the two privates went for breakfast. After people said, there's nothing to worry about. And that's what you typically do when there's nothing to worry about. Well, let's just go get something to eat. 7:45 a.m., that blip on the radar screen had disappeared. Now, why did it disappear? Not that the threat went away, but the planes were now so close to the island that they couldn't be seen. They were blocked behind some hills. And so the radar was incapable of detecting them. At 7:53 a.m., 8 minutes after the men went for breakfast, the first bomb started raining down from the sky upon Pearl Harbor. Carnage, devastation, death, and destruction shortly followed thereafter. The great tragedy of all this is that for an hour, a whole hour, there was clear, inescapable, irrefutable evidence of what was about to take place. Evidence that danger was at hand. The signs were all around that something needed to be done. And the signs were observed, and sadly they were ignored. I want to ask us today, could we be making a similar mistake? Are we observing signs of the end only to later ignore them? Let us learn from history. It's a dangerous thing to ignore the signs. In the Bible, there are signs today that clearly indicate that the end of the world is near. Signs that Jesus is about to return, and these are signs that you don't want to miss. The disciples of Jesus wanted to be clear on signs that would alert them to concerning last days and Jesus Christ's return. They came to him one day and they asked him a certain question, and it's found in Matthew 24. Now, it's interesting as you turn there in your Bibles, Matthew 24, you'll find Jesus is sitting on the Mount of Olives. We're going to read those scriptures, but his very presence is indicating something that should have struck the people with a little awe, because historically this lines up with the day that the Shekinah glory, the glory of God, it left the temple. In the book of Ezekiel, it covers it in other places, but it talks about the glory of God leaving the temple and resting on the Mount of Olives. Here Jesus is, as the disciples approach him, he's been talking to the people, trying to get them to see God's way, trying to win their hearts. He's been teaching in the temple. He's been going through all kind of things with him, but now he withdraws himself from the temple, just as the Shekinah glory did in the book of Ezekiel. So they came to him, and we'll pick it up in Matthew 24. And we're going to, on the screen, it shows verse 3. But we're going to read from Matthew 24, verse 1. You have that? Matthew 24 and verse 1. I want you to pay attention to where Jesus is and what's going on. Matthew 24 and verse 1. And Jesus went out, and guess what? He departed from the temple. That's very important. He departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now, why would that be significant to the disciples? They thought that everything was the temple. The temple was their everything. It was their all in all. It was the focal point of their lives. And so Jesus is telling them that this focal point of your life, this point of reference, one day it's not going to be anymore. You're going to look and there won't be any real evidence that this place ever stood. One stone will not even be connected to another. I want to just go over to Ezekiel to confirm that this is lining up also with This has happened before in history, and the Spirit of God or the glory of God departed from the temple just as Jesus did. And it symbolized an abandonment of the temple. God would never abandon his people, but an abandonment of highly held beliefs and misconceptions about this temple. That in the temple that you could have safety, when it was really the Lord, not the temple itself. Ezekiel 11, verse 23, I'll read for you. We'll start at verse 22. Ezekiel 11:22 says, "Then did the cherubims lift up their wings, and the wheels beside them, and the glory of the Lord God of Israel was over them above. And the glory of the Lord went up from the midst of the city. He departed and stood upon the mountain, which is on the east side of the city." Can you guess which mountain that was? It's the Mount of Olives, where Jesus is in this scene. Verse 3 of Matthew 24. "Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying," well, we already went through that. Verse 3, "Now as he sat," yes, sorry about that. "Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?'" It's good to know that you can know something happening before it happens. We've been given, as Chuck was talking in the lesson, about the spirit of prophecy. We have that as a church. We're able to tell people where we are in time. And how nice it would be, instead of after something happening, coming and saying, "Yeah, it says right here that this would have happened." How great it would be if we could do that before time. And so Jesus said the purpose of prophecy, he says, "I tell you these things before they come to pass, that when they come to pass, you might believe." Not that after they come to pass, I'm going to come back and say, "I told you so." It would be very important to be able to tell people what ahead of time what was come to them. And this is what they were asking him. What will be the sign of your coming? What will be the signs of the end of the age? Now, they were confused when he said that the temple would be destroyed. So they considered that to be also the end of the world. And so they said, "What is it going to be like when you come back?" Jesus answered and said unto them, Matthew 24, verse 4, "Take heed that no man deceive you." Now, why would he even start this out? Why would he answer the question this way? Why not just go down and delineate all the signs? Number one, you're going to see this, you're going to see that. He says, look, take heed. He sounds like he's very concerned about them. Take heed that no man deceive you. This tells me that deception might be prevalent in the last days. Whatever the popular notion is, or the popular belief concerning Jesus coming, might be a deception. It's very possible that it could be. But it also speaks of deceptions of philosophy, thinking that their safety might be in the place or instead of the person. Thinking that the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. And they're trusting in lying words, Jeremiah said, that do not profit. Our safety is not in the temple, it's not in the church, but it is in God himself. And people in the world are right now experiencing that safety is not in your health, safety is not in your bank account, it is in God himself. So Jesus said, take heed that no one deceives you. Now, there have been a lot of other deceptions connected to the last days. And remember, Jesus is on that Mount of Olives, and that's Matthew 24. You know what happened in Matthew 23? He wept over the city. He said, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who stones the prophets and kill those who are sent to you." And he's crying, and he ends his sentence by saying, "Your house is left unto you desolate." But there's a modern deception that something has to happen over in Israel, literal Israel, before Jesus comes back. Could that have been one of the deceptions that he was warning against? I think so. But it's also about predicting when the end would be. You have on the screen, Judgment Day is coming. And he has it narrowed down, whoever put this up here, to a specific day. I ask you, did that day come on May 21st, 2011? If Judgment Day began that day, I missed it. I didn't catch it. And, people may say, well, the denomination that you belong to, they talked about a day and it didn't happen. Something did happen. And I do not put October 22, 1844 in the same category as May 21, 2011, because October 22, 1844 was based on solid biblical research and Bible study. I don't know what May 21, 2011 was based on. So I want to make an appeal for us not to lump what the pioneers went through as just getting a date wrong. Well, they got the date right, but the event was not what they expected. That's why they were disappointed. Well, we could think about this prophecy coming to pass, and a lot of expense and publicity was connected to it, but the day came and the day went. And you know, when we do that, often our children and people who are in church, maybe nominally, they kind of disconnect when you're getting them scared about a specific date. And if you yourself are scared about that date and you're trying to get ready by May 21st of whatever year, and it doesn't happen, then you sink back into a greater depression than you had in the first place. So we don't need to be setting dates. Jesus says now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation. He wants our hearts when? He wants them now. My granddaddy used to say Jesus is coming. My granddaddy rests in the grave now. He never saw it, but he lived every day of his life like he thought that could come at any time. And we should live that way as well, but sometimes we can get disappointed when he doesn't come, when we think he should. All right. Verses 4 and 5 of Matthew 24. And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. I'm just going to flash that on the screen. We could go with many other people. I don't want to bore or depress you with all the false Christs that have come about. You probably can name a few. And this is Jim Jones, popular man, pastor of the church. It was a model of racial harmony. Beautiful, the people's temple. You know, the first lady, Rosalind Carter, met with him on many occasions. He was a very influential person. Mayor of San Francisco said he was a great, great person. Well, in 1978, he led 900 of his followers to kill themselves in Guyana. Among the dead were 300 children. And this is a man who said, if you want me to be your friend, I'll be your friend. And he also said, if you want me to be your God, I'll be your God. Jesus said false Christs would be a sign of his coming in the last days. Matthew 24 and verse 6. You will hear of war and rumors of wars. And I don't know why it's a little delay. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And I'm highlighting wars and rumors of wars, but I really want us to focus on that second statement there. It says, see that you are what? See that you are not troubled. Jesus said, don't worry. The end is not yet. You're going to hear about these things. Not only wars, but rumors of wars. CNN, Fox. It's always a war brewing. It's a war going on right now. They're calling this viral attack a war against an unseen enemy. When I was growing up, there was the war on drugs. It's always a war. There's a war on terror, and they used to broadcast and tell you how scared you were supposed to be that day. You had an orange alert, a red alert, a yellow alert, and if you didn't, just in case you forgot how panicked you should be, they would. You remember that? They would remind you so you could keep your panic level right. So he said to them, the end is not yet. We have to see these things, but the end is not yet. Now, proliferation of war is something Jesus said would be a sign of his coming. So have we seen any wars in our time? Been a lot of wars. Should be on another slide. Okay. All right. All right, there we go. All right, how many people died in World War I? Would you like to guess? Anybody? says 24 million people died in World War I. In World War II, how many you think died, more or less? Less? Well, and maybe in a parallel universe, 60 million is not less than 24. It was even more. I think it was more people involved. 60 million deaths in World War II. Now, one death is too much, right? Now, we react to that, but what about God, the heart of God, who's not willing that any should perish, but wants all to be saved and come to repentance? 60 million people died in that war, and how many without the hope of Christ? Now, you can add to that the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the war on terrorism, the war on drugs, the war on this invisible enemy, the war on whatever. And there are millions and millions of people that have lost their lives. Some of it doesn't even make the news. When Jesus said that a sign of earth's last days, a sign of his coming and the end of the world is wars and news of wars or rumors of wars, there's no question he could easily have been talking about our day. Now he adds to that in Matthew 24, verse 7, for nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. Famines. You know, we don't think about that much here, right, in America, but there are people who are not getting, you could be malnourished and be eating every day. I would like to just add that. Malnourished doesn't mean you're not eating, but you could be eating stuff that's not real food. And we see what crisis what we're in when in terms of food that you don't think about American suffering. But remember when the children couldn't go to school, what was one of the things that they had to consider? That's where they were getting their only food from. And so and then there are places where people are not eating, not getting any food at all. But Jesus said these would be a sign of his of the last days and his coming. United Nations tells us that 1 in 9 people don't get enough food to live a healthy, active life. And that's sad. It almost brings you to tears to hear that people can't get the food that they need, and how much food that we may throw away. In a world so advanced, so intelligent, and so qualified, so technologically developed, we can't figure out how to stop people from dying from hunger-related causes. A third of the food we produce in the United States is wasted. I believe that's enough to probably feed everyone who's hungry. 220 pounds of food a year is wasted. 220 pounds of food a year is wasted by Americans. And I think that breaks God's heart. What about outbreaks of infectious diseases? Bacterial and viral infections. Jesus spoke about this. He said pestilences. That's a big word. It just means vicious viral or bacterial outbreaks that cause sickness and death. So there were pestilences in the Bible, and there are pestilences in our day. AIDS, HIV, the virus that caused AIDS. That's a pestilence. Millions of people have lost their lives to that. And we thank God that, that has been slowed down. The advancements in medication and treatment have kind of slowed that down. And there's some other natural things that you could do as well. And so when someone you remember Magic Johnson? When he got announced, when he announced that he had HIV, in those days, it was literally a death sentence. But he's still with us today. But the experts say, guess what? There's not a cure, and they don't expect it. Some of them don't expect it to be one. What about Ebola, H1N1, the flu? COVID-19 is the current one, or SARS-CoV-2, which causes coronavirus. These diseases are modern-day pestilences, people. We don't think about them so much. They're diseases that really scare us, Ebola and SARS, and now, remember it was mad cow disease, it was always something, and now it's this coronavirus that has really taken the world by storm. Jesus said these things would be. Now, when Jesus also talks about earthquakes, that's something that we have to consider as well. Are those a sign of the end times? Pakistan, 2005, 80,000 people died in one earthquake. 2008, 70,000 people died in China in an earthquake. 2010, 222,000 people, and probably more, died from an earthquake in Haiti. And that's a lot of people. And sometimes we talk about numbers, but these are lives. These are actual human lives that are being lost in seconds. It's horrible. Jesus said that there will be earthquakes happening in various places. We start thinking about weather-related events. Who can forget Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita? That was a 1-2 punch that caused $150 billion worth of damage, and no one had ever seen anything like it before in Earth's history or in our nation's history. And it was the worst at that time that they had experienced. And we're going to have to update. When you make quotes like that, you're going to have to update that because it's going to always be something that's even worse. What about Dorian last year? This is a personal thing because this is the island that my wife is from is just devastated and destroyed. And not just the property damage and the confusion and the separation, but the loss of life. And you think about the depression that comes as a result of this. I'm talking people would hear rain and they would be having panic attacks after this stuff. You just don't bounce back from this immediately. This thing will really, it changed, some lives are changed. Families are split over this thing. So families are torn apart, communities destroyed. When you drive or you look on the internet at a place that you used to frequent and you can't recognize it anymore. It does something to your psyche. And you can't put a price on that, what we're losing. And we're witnessing some of the worst disasters in modern history. And it's not just about rain coming down. And, hurricanes is like excess water, right? Too much water at one time. But what about when you're not getting enough? People are dying of thirst, or there are fires that break out because the earth is so parched and dry. There have been 100-year droughts in some places. I praise God that I haven't had to experience that. And so these kinds of extreme weather events are going on all the time, and they are a sign that the end is about to come. Now, there's a spiritual application here as well, not just the dryness of the earth, but what about men's hearts? Didn't Jesus say something about that men's hearts would be growing cold because of the sin that exists in the world? There's that spiritual application. Let's not forget that. What else would be a sign in the last days? Not just earthquakes, not just fires, floods, and things that kill people, but we have something to do with it. We reflect whether or not Jesus is coming back in our actions. Matthew 24:37 says, "But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be." What do you think the days of Noah were like? Well, Genesis 6 tells us. Genesis 6, verse 5. "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." So they sat around plotting and scheming and planning how to be more evil than they had been previously. They were outdoing themselves. Genesis 6:11, "The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence." I'm so glad we don't experience that, right? What do we see around us today in our streets, in our cities, around the world? It suggests that we're living in the day that Jesus is talking about. We have violence and violent protests, violence in homes. Just this all together. You heard of the term road rage? People just someone cuts you off and people end up dying over something so trivial. And so there's some nodding saying that some people suffer or may have dealt with road rage even in God's house. But it's really not road rage. I call it reality rage. We often live outside of reality. We're into ourselves so much. That when something comes and interrupts that, we freak out. I'm listening to some of us, we're Christians. We're listening to our nice Christian music. We're listening to "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus." And someone will have the nerve to cut us off. And we lose it. You know, it's something else. It's reality rage. It has nothing to do with the road. It has something to do with this distance we want to create between ourselves and others, this private space that we don't want anyone to invade. And before we have a chance to process it, we get angry enough to kill someone or get killed. How bad does it have to be before we realize where we are? We're in a rough place. I don't have to convince you of that. I believe that's a photo or a surveillance of the shooting in Columbine before it happened. And don't worry, I'm not going to show any images of that. You also had, school shootings, not elementary only, not middle school, not high school only, but even in college. And you remember in Virginia Tech, awful tragedy. 33 people died because of this person. Another in Norway, 77 people died. And people want to say, what is it? Is it mental health? What is going on? Is it too many guns? Well, Sister White told us. She says men possessed of demons are taking the lives of men, women, and children. That explanation is inspired and is good enough for me. I'm not thankful or happy about it, but that's what's going on. When you see someone go into a school in Florida and shoot up children, they are possessed of a demon. It's horrible. So here we are. We have to worry about not only someone coming in, and we don't worry, but you have to contend with people maybe possibly coming in, even in churches, and shooting you up. And, people are developing plans. What about terror groups, Boko Haram? You name some, Taliban. The last one is ISIS. You don't hear much about ISIS anymore, praise God. But, there are so many groups that something is always going on. It seems like this coronavirus has kind of put a lot of the other stuff that we suffer from on a little hold or a little pause. And I'm praying that stuff won't come back, but I'm praying that this thing would end as well, this coronavirus scare. Now, most of the time I grew up watching places like Lebanon and war-torn Iraq. It was always somewhere else, It was always somewhere else. It was the scenes of destruction that we see it was always on TV. It was never something that I saw in my backyard. But you see a picture of this is a bombing somewhere in the Middle East, and it looks eerily similar to another picture that's going to show up. And we're used to seeing those things. This thing must be on a timer. Now, what do you think that is? Is that the Middle East? Yeah, that's New York City. And I didn't want to, dishonor the folks that have died by showing the buildings and planes crashing into them. But that's the aftermath, and that's an American city. It looks like you're looking at something from the Middle East right there. So, and then when 9/11 happened, you have to also look at something else, the loss of, in the sake of national security, the loss of civil liberties. We're seeing that also with the coronavirus, and I want to I'm working on a message that's dealing with that as well. Because to deal with, we won't practice the distancing that we need to practice. So, if the governors can't get the people to do it and if things don't happen right, we need the president to come in and just shut everything down. And when that happens, it restricts road travel. You can't restrict road travel. That's one of the things my wife was concerned about. It's like, no, this is America, You can't restrict. Governor can't tell you can't come into my state. That's unconstitutional. I'm thinking that. But with an act of emergency, the president can declare that, and the interstate can be shut down. A lot of things can happen like that. And I think it's very important. This is for free. This is a side note. And we were discussing some laws this morning about how many people can be in attendance and what it is. Many times when we don't look at the law, we'll assume that it's worse than it is. And so, that's one of the things that prompted my wife to get up here a little earlier. And I agree with it in terms of, before something might happen, let's do it. But don't take a law, shelter in place. Find out what it means. Read up on it. Find out, okay, what can we do? How can we meet? Don't assume the worst, that, oh man, we're on martial law now. No, it'll take a few steps for that to happen. So we want to make sure that we understand our rights, we understand the law, so we'll know what is expected of us, and if it does not inhibit us from worshiping our God, that we could cooperate. So this is a picture. I don't know if this was staged or not, but you get the picture. You see what is happening with the loss of civil liberties. They call them inconveniences. Yeah, if I have to get checked at the airport because there might be a terrorist, I can consider that an inconvenience. But if I can't get out of a state, that's more than an inconvenience. That's a loss of civil liberty. And that's something that we want to be very careful about. There's a temptation for us to say, you know, these things have always happened: floods, earthquakes, fires, pestilences. But Jesus says something very important to let us know that it's not just about the prevalence of things happening. It said they've been happening all along, but Jesus said these words: all these, the things that you're seeing right now that's shocking the world, he says these are the beginning of sorrows. Just the beginning. Now, what does that mean? We know what that means, right? Some of us don't know. It's just talking about birth pangs. If you go in the original language, if you've ever had birth, or you know, you've watched your wife have birth, it's something that, man, I'll never forget that. You know, it's a beautiful experience, but it's a frightening experience as well. To see someone that you love so much going through intense pain and you can't do anything about it. And the pain gets worse and worse. As it comes time to deliver the child, it's more frequent and more disastrous, right? It gets worse and worse, and insults may start coming at you and things that you didn't think your wife would say, you know, PG-13 and, you know, type things. But my wife got really real with her pain, and I hated to see her like that. But as that pain increased, I knew the birth of my child was going to be near. And Jesus even talks about it. I don't want this to be a gloom and doom message. That's why I was a little hesitant about opening up with Pearl Harbor, you know, because we're not warning people about Pearl Harbor. We're warning people to get their lives ready so they could be a part of the greatest blessing that they would ever be a part of. It's the return of Jesus Christ. It's not a bomb that we're trying to escape. It's not we're not looking for a fire escape from hell or that we won't be destroyed. And I don't want to put that out there in any way. For Jesus to call these things birth pangs, we could think about them being frequent, more disastrous, more volcanoes, more destruction, more people displaced by hurricanes, more death by pestilences. But when you see those things increase, you know that the child is about to be born, that Jesus is about to come back. And so a woman goes through this pain. She goes through the discomfort of labor and also carrying a child for 9 months. And then when the child has come, Jesus says she forgets all about that pain. And I'm glad that we're headed toward a reality there'll be no more pain, no more suffering. So think about that. Embed that into your understanding of all these are the beginning of sorrows. We're going through birth pains, but there's going to be something that bursts through the sky that gives us great relief, great joy, and eternal life. Jesus says, after explaining that, we want to look at a couple of more conditions and we'll close. Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, where our scripture reading was taken. Verse 25, these are some more signs. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations. Do we see that now? With perplexity of the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. See, that's the blessed hope. That's our hope. We can't throw that out of the context of the signs that we're seeing. We can concentrate so much on the signs. We can concentrate too much on getting ready. What we have to concentrate is on Jesus Christ himself, allowing him in our hearts to transform us that we might appreciate and share him with others. So we don't want to be those people that are running around having heart attacks. And you're seeing healthy people or so-called healthy people dying from coronavirus, right? But you know about the comorbidities. That means the vast majority of people who are dying have 1 or 2 or 3 conditions. Say you're overweight and you have heart disease and you have risk of stroke, you got cardiovascular issues. And a lot of times that's what the people are actually dying from. Something comes into that mix, that toxic soup, and it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. in many instances. But however, young people still can get affected by this. And I think the knowledge that, oh, it's the old people, or it's this people, or the earthquake hit Haiti because they were in voodoo. We could use these things. We talk about social distancing, but we can do and be guilty of emotional distancing. Oh, it just affects the old people. Well, what about people who are caring for old people? You know, and so you have also people who may appear to be healthy. Like there was a nurse who died. She's 47 years old. They show her picture. Her skin is radiant. This lady has just died of this disease trying to help others. But how healthy was she at that time? When you're working 110 hours a week. I don't know, you might be drinking coffee. You have to do something to stay up. And then when you're in that position and you're distressed and you're seeing dead bodies and hopelessness, when a disease, you contract that disease, I don't care if you can run a marathon, that thing may kill you. And so the distress of nations is something that is serious. But I'm so glad that we have a balm in Gilead, that we have a peace that surpasses all understanding. Do you have that today? And when people see that, they will be willing to listen to a reason of your faith. And we want to be ready always to give every man that asks us a reason for the faith that it lies within us, the hope that is within us. So verse 28, after saying that there'll be all of these bad signs, but he says, he couches it in the terms of Jesus coming back. He says, now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads because your redemption draws near. So you see these signs, they perplex you, they confuse you, they may even worry you. But the more you see them, the more you know your Lord and Savior is coming back. There's another sign that I want to show you as well. It's Matthew 24 and verse 14. We want to frame this in the term of good news. I don't want to depress you today. Matthew 24 and verse 14 says what? We should know that one. Matthew 24, I'll just read it. Verse 14. I lost my place, but I should know that by heart. It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached unto the world for a witness, and then the end shall come. Has that happened yet? It's happening, but it has not happened yet. I do believe we'll bounce back from this crisis, but it is indeed a wake-up call. We don't know when we're going to be in this situation again, so we need to be preparing for the next outbreak. We need to be preparing how we're going to minister when the next thing hits. I'm so glad that we're looking at a world where there'll be no more sorrow, no more pain, no more coronavirus, no more bitterness, no more injustice. And you can look beyond the heartbreak and the hurt of our own present experience and know that good things are coming. Jesus is coming back. That is something that should make us shout. That is something that could make all the difference in the world. You may not be happy with where you are in life, but Jesus is coming again. I want to see the one who pulled me out of that horrible pit. I want to be able to look at him face to face and thank him because he didn't have to do it. And I have a hope, not just to survive, but to thrive, looking forward to his coming. There's a better day coming, friends. If the Bible can be trusted at all, it's telling us that there's a great day coming where he will return and lead his people out of this world and into the promised land to come. Jesus has thrilled the hearts of men and women for centuries, the thought of him returning. How about you? Are you looking forward to that day? Now, there's some people who are poor. Their burdens are great. They have a problem on earth. They don't have money. But you know what? They have a crown waiting on them if their faith is in Jesus Christ. I think of our beloved brother Paul, who said, you know, I fought a good fight. You know, I fought the fight of faith. You know, he's about to get his head chopped off, and he knew it, and he was talking about a crown that he was going to get in heaven. He said, yeah, they're about to behead me. He said, but henceforth there's laid up for me. He's about to be a headless man on earth, but he said, henceforth there's laid up for me a crown in heaven. That's where we need to look. That's where your lifestyle is. It's not here. That's where your conduct is. Your personal, everything is in heaven. Your life is hidden in Christ in God. And so whatever your dwelling place may be here, you say, I got a mansion in heaven. You may be stricken with sickness here, but I got perfect health in heaven. We need to be able to ignore the signs that we see now, not like they did in Pearl Harbor, but the signs that are trying to tell you that God is not on the throne and some things are too hard for him. Nothing's too hard for him. He has not quit. He's still on the throne. and we can trust that he will bring us through this. Now, the devil wants to deceive people. You see a family praying here, oh, what needless pain we bear, right? Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. I want to tell you, follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Gather around the word of God. Make that your counsel and make it your guide. We have no time for bitterness, animosity, any of these things. If these things were in our hearts before this crisis, we need to have them out of our heart now. God has given us a chance to remove them. I know I want to be more faithful as a father, as a husband because of this. So what the devil means for bad, God redirects it and works it for good. A lot of people are going to be more serious about their walk, Becky, because of this trial. A lot of people are going to come to Jesus and be more intent on witnessing and sharing with others. A lot of people are going to be a little less strict in their homes if it's something that's driving their children away. And they'll sit down and they'll talk to them and work things out and try to show them principles instead of trying to control them. A lot of changes is going to take place in God's church and in this earth because of this. I'm just so thankful that he works through things that terrify us to wake us up and to bring us into nearness to himself. We're commanded to love God with how much? All our heart, all our mind, all our soul, and all our strength. And if you hadn't been doing that before, this is your chance to change it now. Now, these are simple, straightforward things and promptings that Jesus is putting on our hearts. And if your heart is corrupt, guess what he can do? He can give you a new one. He can cleanse you. He can do it all. The one who raised Lazarus from the dead, he can resurrect you. The one who opened the eyes of the blind, he can open your eyes. The one who turned water into wine can turn sinners into saints. I'm so thankful that the one that spoke peace to the sea can speak peace into my life. It's not just about what he did when he walked on this earth. It's about what he can do now in you. It's not just an academic exercise, learning God and looking at God and studying the word, but it's about having a personal relationship with him. What we read in the Bible in the signs of the times, the last movements of Earth's history will soon be fulfilled. We're living in those last days and we're there. Jesus is near, even at the door. Anyone know what it's an image about to come to your screen? It's a telegram. Anyone ever sent a telegram? Anyone know Morse code? This is it's something that has been made obsolete because we've technologically advanced our way out of this slow. You talk about snail mail. This was snail mail. You know, we're way beyond this. So people used to get important messages by telegram. It used to take a long time to get these things. Now you don't see people with them anymore. Everything is instant now, right? We Snapchat and Facebook and instant message. Everything that we need to receive the messages that we want to receive. But I pray that we don't forget or neglect the greatest message that could ever come to us. I don't want us to disregard it. And that message is from God. The worldwide proclamation of this message is the last sign of the end that we want to discuss today. And we read it already. And this gospel, Matthew 24, verse 14, shall be preached in all the world for a witness, and then the end shall come. Glorious picture coming in your screen, but it's just a faint representation of what's really coming. I want to be there on that day. It can't be far away. The signs that we're seeing, it has to be close. It has to be close. Don't ignore the signs. Now I'm closing. It's been more than 100 years now. The greatest ship in the world sailed from Southampton, New England, bound for New York City. It's the largest ship in the, at that time to ever be created. It was said to be the safest as well. However, we know what happened to the Titanic. It now sits on the ocean floor. It's somewhere down there around Nova Scotia. And how did it sink? It hit an iceberg, right? What many people forget is that while this what many people forget is while this White Star Line ship was heading west from Britain towards the United States, it received 9, how many did I say? It received 9 warning messages saying there were icebergs ahead. 9 messages. Every one of those messages was received, understood, and unfortunately ignored. Today there are cemeteries in Nova Scotia filled with the dead recovered from the wreck of the Titanic. And more recently, a cruise ship, the Costa Concordia, was wrecked off the coast of a small Italian island named Isola del Giglio. I hope I'm saying that right. It ran over a rock that tore a 160-foot gash in the hull, causing the ship to take on water, tip on its side, and essentially sink. Like the Titanic, it wasn't supposed to sink. They thought, no, it's safe, it won't sink, but a number of people lost their lives in that tragedy. But even after the ship had encountered that rock, people on board were unaware that they were in danger, and they had yet been told what to do in case of an emergency. When the event occurred, they were told the ship was dealing with an electrical fault, and so they went on enjoying the cruise while the ship was sinking. Brothers and sisters, viewer at home, this planet is a ship that is sinking. There's still so much that looks great and wonderful and idyllic, but let's not fool ourselves into thinking that we're cruising safely and we're really going down. The only thing that can help us and save us is Jesus Christ. The question is, what of us? What will we say to Jesus Christ? Are our hearts given to him to be kept and defended? Is he yours? Is he your trust? Is he your stay? Is he your all in all? Are you looking forward to him coming again? I know I am. He's going to bring us into that place where there's no more sorrow, no pain, no more suffering, no more heartaches, no more layoffs. Oh, only joy and peace and love. Well, we must choose him now. You'll say, hey, I've already chosen. I'm watching the live stream. I'm a part of the church. Well, that's going to be tested. It's going to be tested when you leave the confines of your home. It'll be tested even before you do that with your children, your relationship with your wife, your husband, your neighbors. Are we willing to be taken over by Jesus Christ? Are we willing to submit ourselves and our identities to him no matter what will come? That's what I want us to contemplate today. Let us pray as we close this message. And the call is that Jesus is coming again. Jesus is the answer to suffering. Your safety is in nothing else but Jesus Christ, and he's enough. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much that you sent your son that, Lord, we be not condemned, but that we would be saved. And I know that sometimes it takes numbers to get our attention, 150,000, 200,000, whatever the numbers are that are changing even as we speak of people dying and possibly even going into Christless graves. We know it grieves your heart. And Lord, we pray that in the midst of all this suffering that we do not forget that our redemption draws nigh. And it is a redemption that we don't want to keep to ourselves, that we want to share with others. And so, Lord, as you bless us to fill our cups to overflowing, we pray that we spill out on those around us, our neighbors. It's a little harder to do it, but there's no excuse. The word still goes forth for us to go into all nations, to baptize, to teach them about a soon coming Savior. And we have to find a way to do it. We're underground right now, so to speak. And I pray that this will be a reminder of where we're headed, where we came from. The church at some point will go underground. We have to know how to operate. And I'm just praying, Lord, for those who are under the sound of my voice and those who are beyond, those who don't even have a clue what I'm saying, Lord, that you would touch us, that you would wake us up, that the biggest enemy we have to face is not coronavirus or anything. It's Satan and ourselves. We have to fight self. We ask for strength to fight against self and accept you. Save our families, save our homes, and save us, Lord. And we thank you that you have spoken that peace into our hearts in the midst of such great suffering. But help it not to distance us from those who are really suffering. Help us to enter into their pain and be a blessing. Show us how to bless others, we pray. As we see the signs, we observe them, we don't ignore them. But we're thankful that as bad as they are, we're glad that they point us to you. And we love you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.